everybody. Welcome to our weekly lecture series. This is an opening lecture on the Semi-Slav. I want to thank our sponsor, Robert Veneris. He's very generous in sponsoring many videos and is actually watching live. If you'd like to sponsor a lecture, contact my wife, Karen. Her information is on the screen right now, and you can have a lecture about what you want to have a lecture about. So this is a very specific lecture because we're going to talk about not only the Semi-Slav, but we're going to concentrate on Black's queen bishop, the bishop on c8, and whether it's good or bad. And we're going to look at some games where it's good and some games where it's not good. And the result of the game often will be decided based on whether Black can get that bishop out, which is currently blocked in by all the pawns. As you can see from the diagram position, the Wikipedia article, it discusses the move order of the Semi-Slav, some other move orders, what the ECO codes are, and different ways of playing, lots of different variations. And we're going to discuss two variations mainly, the Moran variation with bishop d3. That's going to be some of the games. And some of the games are going to be let's see if we can get down, the bishop g5 variation, as they call it. It's called the Botvinnik, I think, typically. We're going to look at the Botvinnik variation with d takes c4. And we'll get to this diagram here on the right. And pretty detailed article on all the different variations and what people can do. And obviously we can't go over every variation in every line because that would take too long. But we're going to talk about a lot of games where the bishop on c8 either gets to a good square or doesn't, and resulting positions are either favorable to white or black depending on that bishop. Okay, now the way I've organized the lecture is the first game is going to be from Black's point of view, and the next three games are from White's point of view, and the last game will be from Black's point of view. So you can get a little taste of whether this bishop on c8 gets to a good square or not. First game is the most famous game we're going to look at between Aronian and Anand, 2013 Tata Steel. I was actually doing live commentary with Danny Wrench on chess.com, and I told Danny that I had Anand's information online to get him on a call if he was available. And Danny thought that would be a good idea if I could arrange that. And I contacted Anand online. He was in his hotel room. He said he would like to do a live commentary after the game. And he did on chess.com with me and Danny. So that was pretty awesome. We got to talk to Anand right after the game, after we did some analysis. Okay, so Semi-Slav. Okay, all the games are going to start with this position. Black can play lots of moves here. But if you want to play the Semi-Slav, then you play e6, because that's what the Semi-Slav is. And in this particular lecture, we're going to discuss bishop g5 and e3. Those are the two most common moves. White can also play g3, c takes d5, queen b3. Those are also played occasionally. But bishop g5 and e3 are the two main moves with thousands and thousands of Grandmaster games. Okay, so Aronian played e3. Knight b d7. Bishop d3. This is the main line of the Moran. Takes. And typically Black waits to take on c4 until White's already moved their bishop, so that White has to move the bishop and then move the bishop again to recapture. And the focus of this lecture is going to be this bishop on c8. And you can see why the sponsor was interested in that piece because that piece looks pretty bad. And sometimes black gets it to an excellent square and has a good position. Sometimes white prevents that, or black doesn't do a good enough job of getting the bishop active. And as a consequence, white gets a really good position. Okay, so Anand played b5, which is typical. In a lot of these positions that we're going to look at today, black attempts to play bishop b7 and then later c5. And if black can achieve those moves and not lose material, typically the bishop is quite good. In other news, if we play bishop b7 and we never play c5, that's not as good. It's not good because the bishop is blocked by the c pawn and doesn't have any good place to go. Okay, bishop d3 is the main move. And it used to be everybody played a6 here to play c5. And then they started playing bishop b7 to play c5 later and a6 later. Or to not play a6 and simply play b4 and then c5. If you play c5 right away, you lose your b pawn. So, but nowadays, bishop d6 is a pretty common move. It's more flexible for black. Black gets to castle kingside earlier than normal. Black hasn't decided yet whether to play a6 c5 or to play b4 c5. And occasionally black will play e5 since, the knight and bishop are controlling e5. So bishop d6 is pretty common now. Well, this game was played 11 years ago, but still this is the way a lot of players play with black. Okay, castles, queen c2, giving a battery to the queen and bishop on this diagonal. Bishop b7, Anand develops his bishop. So what's funny is, even though the lecture concerns this bishop, in the variations where white plays e3 and doesn't play e4, like in this game, this bishop has some other similar issues to the black bishop on b7. Now, this bishop potentially, once black gets c5 in, if he can get it in, that's a good bishop. But even if we cheated and made two moves in a row for white and played b3, bishop b2 to fianchetto white's bishop, just like black's bishop, the bishop is still blocked by the knight and the pawn. So getting this bishop active might be more difficult in this particular variation than getting this bishop active. Notice Anand develops all of his minor pieces and castles before he does anything active. Okay, a3, making black not want to play b4 so much. Rook c8. Rook's obviously better on c8 than a8. Lines up with the white queen. I always like doing that. And knight g5, very aggressive move. And the reason white didn't do well this game is he played all this deep preparation that Anand had, but Anand's preparation was much deeper than Levon's. And this move, sort of threatens to take on h7 and attack the black king. And if black plays a normal move like h6, we can play knight e4. And with the knight on e4, the other knight can go to e4. Then we're defending the c5 square, making it more difficult to play c5. And white's goal, since white played a3, is probably to play b4 and try to stop c5 forever. And we're going to see that in the future games of the lecture. Okay, Anand played c5, and this sacrifices the b pawn, and it sacrifices the h pawn. And you might be wondering, how does Anand find a move like that? And the answer is, it was found at home. This is his preparation ostensibly for the World Championship match against Gelfand that he didn't get a chance to play. And when you play for a World Championship, which is going on right now, you do lots of preparation, for weeks or months with coaches and engines. And then a lot of your preparation doesn't get used because you're only playing 12 or 14 games and you've prepared thousands of different variations. So you can use that preparation later in your life. And since Anand has played 5 or 6 world championships, he's got a lot of preparation. He's got a lot going on that hasn't been shown yet. So we've opened up our bishop, and our rook is going to get opened up to the queen. So black has good compensation for a pawn. Bishop on c1 and the rook on a1 aren't really participating in the game. And they won't. Truth hurts. Okay, knight takes h7 was played by Aronian. And then knight g4, sacrificing the rook on f8. But probably white shouldn't take that because black wants to play bishop h2 check, king h1, queen h4, and black has all of his pieces attacking the white king. So I wouldn't do that. And again, this is his preparation. He knew after knight h7 that knight g4 was a good move. Aronian played f4, blocking the bishop on d6 from attacking the h2 pawn. Then c takes d4, opening up the rook, weakening white's center. White recaptured. And then bishop c5. And bishop c5 isn't a move you would find like if you were just playing a chess game. It's the kind of move that you can find when you're doing all kinds of analysis at home, and the computer says, hey, bishop c5 is good. So in this position, Aronian thought for a very long time, something like 30 minutes, and played the move bishop e2, which is a very strange move. And what's funny is, I think after bishop e2, Aronian didn't see black's next move. So he thinks for a long time, and he's still surprised by Anand's response. So the idea is, if you take on c5, then I can take on c5, threatening your bishop. And the other idea I have is I want to play queen d4 check. So for example, we can look at 2 moves here for white. One is to save the bishop, and one is to defend the bishop. If we defend the bishop, we have queen d4 check, king h1, knight f2 check, and clearly black is winning here. And white can also play king f1. Then we can play knight h2 check. The king comes out for a walk, king to e2. And this is all in Anand's preparation. So I don't know what the forced line is, but this was studied at home by Anand a long time ago. And probably bishop takes g2 is good because we're threatening bishop f3 check. And obviously white's king is not well placed, although it is well placed for black. So there's all kinds of tricks like that. If you play bishop e2, then I can check, king h1 check, and now white's being threatened with bishop g2 mate, queen g2 mate, and queen e1, which leads to mate. There's too many mates. So Aronian didn't like his choices here, and he ended up playing bishop to d2, or e2, I should say, and obviously expecting bishop takes d4 check to be played. Then the king would move, and white's threatening knight takes rook, and white can take this knight off and get rid of some of black's attack. And here Anand remembered his prep for bishop e2 and played the most amazing move of the game, I think. Knight d to e5. This actually reminds me of a game Hort played in the 70s where he did something similar. And the idea is Anand doesn't want to take with the bishop on d4. Anand wants to take with the queen. So for example, if we blunder and take the knight, queen takes check, queen g1 check, and knight f2 checkmate. So that's what Anand is threatening right now. Also, Anand protects his knight, so that's good. And with Anand having this great bishop here, white doesn't really have any chances. Okay, so white played bishop takes g4, bishop takes check, knight takes g4. And now, if it was black's turn to move, black would play queen h4 with unstoppable threats. And in this position, material is equal. Black hasn't even sacrificed anything. And Aronian played knight takes rook. And this actually has a nice trap. If black plays queen h4, threatening queen h2 mate, you might think, well, white has to play g3 or h3. g3 is illegal because of our nice bishop on b7. h3 should be illegal because queen takes h3 is checkmate, confusing the audience, which is you. Okay, so unfortunately for Anand, if he had done this, Aronian would play queen h7 check and trade queens. And now white's not losing, white's actually up material here. And there's going to be no mate. So Anand prevented queen h7 check by playing the move f5. Now, if it were Anand's turn to move, he would play queen h4. So Aronian played knight g6, saving his knight and stopping queen h4. That makes sense. Then queen f6, attacking the knight. The knight doesn't have a good place to go, and knight e5 would run into queen h4, and this is problematic for white. And the knight doesn't have anywhere else to go, so Aronian played h3, attacking the black knight, but not really. And Anand took on g6. Now if you take the knight, we have queen h6 mate or queen h7 mate. So he didn't take the knight. He played queen e2, queen h5, sacrificing his e-pawn with check, but black is threatening queen takes h3 checkmate with advantage. Queen d3, defending the h-pawn, and then Anand does a very nice interference trick here, plays bishop e3. That blocks the queen from defending h3. You can give up your queen, but then if you take back, you get checkmated. And even if you didn't get checkmated, you lose your bishop, so it's also bad. And if you don't play queen takes e3 and take with the bishop, then this leads to checkmate because of this beautiful bishop on b7 and checkmate. And if you do nothing, then queen takes h3 check. And in this position, white is completely lost. White's actually never moved these two queenside pieces. Black's pieces were all very aggressive on good squares, very active, threatening the white king. And in this position, Aronian resigned. And interviewing Anand right after the game and having him talk about it was really nice because we knew this was a very special game. Okay, so in that game, bishop on b7 had its say, and it was always threatening queen takes h3 checkmate, and it was stopping white from playing g3. So this is a very important piece in this game. Okay, now we'll look at some games where white did well. This is Peter Svidler versus Sergey Karjakin in the Baku Grand Prix in 2008. Sorry, I'm showing it in 2024. I guess I'm 2000 and late. Okay, so they played a Semi-Slav because that's what this lecture is about. And they were like, we want to be in Ben's lecture, so they played a Semi-Slav. Okay, and then e3, it's the same. Everything's the same. b5, bishop d3. And in this position, Karjakin played the same as Anand, although this is 5 years before the Anand game. Castles, castles. Aronian played queen c2 here, and Svidler played a3, not playing queen c2. Bishop b7. Queen c2, we transpose into the Anand game. Here Anand played rook c8. and Karjakin played a6, which is less accurate. The reason it's less accurate is the point of a6 is to play the move c5. And in some positions, and by some I mean this one, white wants to play b4 and prevent black from playing c5. In those instances, black will play a5, attacking the pawn on b4. Well, if you're going to meet b4 with a5, then you don't want to play a6, because then you play a6, then a5. And Svidler's like, sounds good to me. b4, and the bishop on b7 is more or less permanently shut out of the game. So Anand's move, rook c8, is considered stronger and was played after this game. I'm sure Anand and Aronian were aware of this game and knew about this move order. b4, black played a5. Black lost to tempo by playing a6 first. Rook b1, defending the b pawn. Traded, and now this guy is going to suffer for quite a long time. Queen e7, threatening the b pawn, and then white plays e4, attacking in the center. White's threatening e5, winning a piece. Black plays e5, stopping that. Knight e2. It says in theory, taking is the most common move. Knight e2 is rare. And the idea is, if black ever takes, white wants to take back and then get the knight to f5. Or if black never takes, we can play knight g3, knight f5. And again, this bishop is missed. Bishop would be better defending against knight f5 if it was on c8. Black wins the pawn and hopes to play c5 later. Knight g3. White to move would be winning here. Knight f5 is winning because it attacks the queen. The queen's defending the bishop. And the queen can't defend the bishop if you play knight f5. So g6 stops knight f5. Takes. Knight g4. We can't just simply recapture because our queen is overworked. So we would just lose a piece. So you can't do that. So he plays knight g4. Bishop attacks the queen. The queen can't really move anywhere safely and defend the bishop unless it goes to c5. So that's what he did. Unfortunately, queen c5, which saves the bishop, blocks the c pawn. So the bishop on b7 is still terrible. e6. If black trades queens, then the knight is attacked and the bishop is attacked. So that's not good. So he played knight de5. Knight takes. Black has to take with the knight. Black can't take with the queen. I guess black could take with the queen because this bishop is attacked. Although I'm sort of worried about f4 or bishop e7 or bishop... Well, no, actually bishop e7 is hanging and bishop h6 is hanging. So he could have taken with the queen, but he took with the knight. Bishop f6. Again, if we trade here, then we have two pieces attacked. So white might enjoy that. That's what happened. Bishop d6, defending everything. The bishop on b7 is still bad. Bishop b3, getting big attack against black's king. Black's up a pawn. Or wait, black's not up a pawn. I was close. Material's equal now. But white has these nice threats on the king side, and the bishop on b7 is still very poor. Takes, check, knight f7, f4. So material's equal. And again, black would like to play c5, but, he's got some problem on the b file here. So bishop c8, trade off his bad bishop finally. And white says, no, your bishop is still bad on c8. That's too bad because black played bishop b7 like 15 moves ago and then never played c5 and now plays bishop c8. Truth hurts. f5, cramping the black bishop on c8 even more. And now black is losing because there's going to be a back rank problem, and there's going to be a pin problem, there's an F-file problem. Well, right now the rook is hanging. And if you play rook b8, I can play rook a7 attacking your knight. And it's not easy to defend. So he traded. Now, if it was white's turn to move, white could play rook a8, which would be getting close to checkmate. King f8, rook a7, threatening the knight. Two bishops, what else? Knight e5, rook takes h7, threatening rook h8 mate, checkmate. The bishop's still on c8. Can't do anything about rook h8 mate. So he plays knight c4, blocking our bishop. Takes, threatening mate again. Triple pawns are 3 times as good. Bishop e6. Finally, the bishop gets out. And if you check, then bishop g8 stops the checkmate. Bishop c2. Bishop d3. And I like this move a lot. Bishop f5. Just when you thought your bishop was good, white plays bishop f5. You can't take the bishop because rook h8 is checkmate. And if it's white's turn to move, white takes the bishop, black recaptures, and rook h8 is checkmate. So he played bishop d5. And finally, like the last move of the game, black gets the bishop to a reasonable square. But it's been bad for so long, and white has the passed g-pawn and the 2 bishops and the mating attack, the game's over. King f2, defending everything. Black has no defense to white's onslaught on the king side. Rook e8, bishop d7, attacking the rook. Doesn't matter what he does, he's still going to lose. There's nothing to do about bishop g7 and bishop e7 and rook h8. Everything is just winning. For example, let's move the rook somewhere. I can check. You have to go here, and I play here. And if you ever wondered what the truth hurts means, this is what Lizzo was talking about. Okay, so knight d6 was played, bishop check, and now black resigned. Black is completely losing, and only legal move is king g8. Then white has a choice of how to win. White can take the rook, or white can move the bishop somewhere, threatening rook h8 checkmate. And there's nothing to be done here. So really nice game by Svidler. Unfortunately, it took black all the way to the end of the game before his bishop got to a good square, and then he had to resign. Okay, next game is Radjabov versus Ivan Šarić. I think Šarić won the European Championship recently. This was played in 2012 at the Olympiad in Istanbul. Radjabov is white, plays for Azerbaijan. And this is bishop g5. This is a different move than we've looked at previously. Previously, we looked at white playing e3 in this position. And we look at the main line of the Botvinnik, which is this. I've had white and black in this position several times. And in this position, I take the knight on f6. And after g3, black can transpose into main lines with bishop b7. But there's another line that black can play with rook g8. And then after h4, we sacrifice the exchange so that we don't lose our knight on f6. Now, black has 2 pieces for a rook and pawn. And the main problem with black's position is what this lecture is about, and that's the bishop on c8. It's going to have a hard time getting to a good square. Okay, g6. This is all theory. This is player's preparation. Takes. Queen g4. This is like the end of my knowledge because I don't play either side of this line. Bishop g2, knight b6. Still the bishop on c8 isn't getting anywhere good. White plays bishop e4. Black says, let's trade queens. White says, nah. Black says, let's trade queens. White says, nah, let's not trade queens. Your king on e8's not very good. So again, white has a rook and a pawn for 2 pieces, but black's bishop on c8, not too good. Rook h7. King e2. White wants to play rook h1 and attack down the h-file. Black hasn't even tried to get his bishop active yet. But black is threatening knight takes d4 check. And queen takes rook. And no wonder he was European champion. Queen h5 check, defending the rook. Knight takes d5. And 2 bishops for the rook, but look at the bishops. Haven't made a move the whole game. And the bishop on c8 blocked in by all of his pawns. Can't get somewhere active like bishop g4 check, exclam. Queen check. Always repeat. Rook h8. Tripling on the h-file. f4. Finally, black tries to activate the bishop, threatening bishop g4 check. Rook h4. Oh, well, you can't play bishop g4. Oh, well, he tried. Now his bishop is attacked 6 ways from Sunday. Finally gets his bishop out, but loses all of his pieces. And black says, I'm going to make a queen. Look at me. And rook takes pawn check. Now black resigns because next move, white is going to play rook takes bishop. And I'll make a sample move. Let's go here. I don't know. And if you queen, I take this queen, and you'll notice that white is ahead of rook. And 2 pawns. God damn. Okay. And if you take the rook, then I can play rook g4, or queen g4, or queen g5, or queen g6 check, and just pick up your pawn. One variation I liked was king c8 takes, queen g4, which trades queens and wins the g-pawn. Although we can avoid losing our g-pawn by giving it up right away. We can avoid trading queens, I mean, but okay, it's a completely hopeless position. So after rook takes a7 check, black resigned. Black's bishop was terrible the whole game on c8. Then when black played bishop d7, that ended up losing his rook on a8. The bishop's still not good on d7, and it's going to get captured now. So that game, even though black was ahead material, the material he was ahead was rook on a8, bishop on a8, bishop on f8. It's not active. Okay, and the next game where white wins is Aronian again. We saw Aronian lose with white to Anand. Now he loses with black. Man, if you want to be the best players in the world, you have to lose with both sides. This is Nakamura Aronian from St. Louis Blitz 10 years ago in 2014. This is a year after Aronian lost that game to Anand. And they transposed. Okay, we get the same position. Bishop g5 again, just like last game. And we saw this in the last game. All these moves are the same. And now bishop e7. In the last game, we saw black play knight b d7. Bishop e7 forces a reckoning. We have to trade everything. And now we have a position where if this bishop becomes good, it's all good for black. If the bishop never becomes good, like in this game, then Nakamura wins. Not just white wins, but Nakamura wins. Okay, g3, bishop g2. Black can't play c5. Bishop on b7, just blocked by all of its pawns. and he sacrifices the exchange, which is an excellent move. We can't really allow rook takes a7. We can't allow that rook to hang out. So now the bishop is bad again. Knight c5. And the bishop is trapped. And the knight on c5 is too good. So black goes into the endgame by sacrificing the exchange back. And unfortunately, this bishop is just as terrible on a6 as it was on b7. It's blocked by 2 pawns. White has a passed c pawn. White has a passed h pawn. And black has no passed pawns. So we have equal material where white has the better bishop. White's rook stands better than black's rook. White's rook's on an open file. And white has 2 passed pawns. So this ending is very good for white. White's threatening things like rook d6, forking, rook a1 with a skewer. So b4 was played. Rook a1, rook d8. So I was analyzing this on my own, and I was like, if he takes, then check, then c3 to queen. And now I thought after taking this that rook a2 was good, but I didn't see what to do against b3. You can't play rook a2. So now I'm going to queen my pawn and win the exchange. And I guess that's winning for black because I have this pawn. Okay, so he doesn't take the bishop. The bishop's bad anyway. He plays bishop f1. Always play bishop f1. Now the bishop is hanging, and if it goes to b7, you lose your c4 pawn, then your e6 pawn's attacked, your a7 pawn's attacked. So he went to b5, which saves his c pawn. Now b3, the bishop is still bad on b5. It's pinned to the pawns there, and now the a7 pawn is attacked, the c4 pawn is attacked, and white still has this advanced this passed h pawn, which will be dangerous later. He sacrifices his bishop. So the bishop never got good, and eventually he gave it away. And now he's threatening rook d1 check. So bishop e2. Then a5. Black wants to play a4. Takes b3, b2. And these pawns are looking pretty strong. Rook c1, threatening the pawn on c2. Rook d2, king f1, defending the bishop. And now black resigned. Black has to play a4 if he doesn't want to resign. Then king e1. And now the truth hurts. And a sample variation would be takes, 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 here, here, takes, takes, takes. And unfortunately for black, we got that h pawn. There's no way black's going to take the h pawn and then run back over here. That's not going to happen. He might get to d6 or e7, but he's not getting to g8. And even if he did, he'd be losing because my king would come here and take this. That's the best black can do after the final position. And white's threatening king e1, rook moves away, take on c2. So he ended up resigning. So again, the black bishop never got good. Now that was a blitz game, so, you know, some inaccuracies were made. Okay, for those of you who play black and you're tired of seeing white winning, this is the game Yannick Gozzoli plays for France against Ray Robson. This was in a Banter Blitz Cup in 2019 on Chess 24. They played this main line we just looked at twice. Okay, and then in the first game, we saw knight bd7. The second game, we saw bishop e7. Knight bd7. The first game, we saw g3. And he just takes like I do. So if I had white, this is how I would play. This is all theory. I've had this position with white more than once. If you like to investigate games, if you can find a game in a database where I have white against Darwin Yang in the Spice Cup in Texas about 12 years ago, maybe, I prepared that game for months. I prepared this variation for white, and I ended up playing my prep against Darwin Yang, and I won easily. And when the game ended, he said, I'm never playing that opening with black again. So that was good prep. Okay, these guys prep deeper than I do, but that was my one where I prepped for months, this line right here. Okay, it's still this line. Rook b1, and I think I played knight a4, which is the other move. Rook b1's also very common. In fact, in the Wikipedia article, they talk about this position and say knight a4 and rook b1 are the common moves. I've also played rook b1 before, the U.S. Championship against David Pruce. That game ended in a draw. Okay, queen a6, takes, bishop takes g2. Now, we're looking from black's point of view, and so that means the bishop on b7 gets to be good. This is one of the best bishops you'll ever see. The bishop takes everything and blocks the position, and it does great. e7, this is all theory. Bishop takes f1. I think this is my game with Pruce. Queen d5. This is still theory. Now, white wants to play queen a8 check, or queen takes f7 in some positions. And rook takes f1, rook d1. Black's up a lot of material, but all black's pieces are hanging. Bishop d3, that's a good bishop. Queen check, knight b8, takes, takes, takes. And now, confusing the audience, white is one pawn ahead, but black has the two bishops, and black has this beautiful bishop, and the knight and the rook are both attacked. Queen c8. I'm sure this is still preparation for Ray Robson. Queen a7. Takes on c3. Triple pawns are 3 times as good. Look at that great bishop. Rook e1. Takes on b2. Black wants to make a queen. Queen takes f7, threatening rook e8 checkmate with advantage. And he just queens. Now you can't play rook e8 because it's illegal. And queen e8's not mate because king goes to c7. So black's up a lot of material now, but the star of the game is this bishop. It took this, it took this, it blocked the d file, and now it protects the promoted queen. Queen e8 check, king c7, the engine move, check, bishop d6. And black's up so much material, I don't understand it. Again, we can't play aggressive moves like rook e7 check because they're still illegal. Queen e7 check, queen d7, bishop takes, king c6, and white's run out of gas. In this position, again confusing the audience, black is up a queen. He's a queen ahead for 2 pawns or 3 pawns. And black is threatening the bishop on d6, and black is threatening to trade queens on e7. So he takes, takes. And now, again, the star bishop of the game, bishop e4 check. That's the star. Now if you play king h3, queen h5 is mate. If you never play f3, then takes, and then either this is mate, or if the king goes to the back rank, you have queen g2 mate, we have rook d1 mate. C'est pas différence. Oh. So after bishop e4 check, white resigned, and that bishop was the star of the lecture. That bishop captured a rook, captured a bishop, captured a rook, captured another rook, and then played bishop e4 check, leading to checkmate. So there's an example of black's bishop really dominating, getting to good diagonals and good squares, being an active participant, and winning the game for black. I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold. Again, I want to thank Rob Veneris for sponsoring the lecture. If you want to sponsor a lecture, contact Karen. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Helps out the channel tremendously. And I'll see you guys next time with more weekly lectures. Thanks again, Rob. This was on the Semi-Slav. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.